Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about a question that one of my viewers brought up. Is the AR pistol too loud to be really useful as a home defense gun? And in my opinion, yes. Okay, it's a great gun, it's a great novelty. I like shooting it. This is a 7.5-inch barrel. I've got 10.5-inch barrels as well. Lots of fun to shoot, but it is extremely loud, even with the linear comp that I have on here. Okay, that's the core value linear comp. It's designed to send more of the noise downrange. Despite that, I have to double up on my ear protection when I shoot this. Okay, now if I'm at an outdoor range that's covered, right, it's louder because that sound echoes back down. And if I'm at an indoor location, it is even louder, okay, because that sound now echoes back even more. So the whole idea with the short barrels, right, is that it's a lot easier to maneuver indoors. My opinion on that is for most of us, right, doing in a home defense type of situation, we're not doing a whole lot of maneuvering. Okay, so there's a difference between the way we would handle a home defense type of situation, all right, home defense type of situation versus how special forces teams, let's say, do room clearing. Okay, they're on a stack, one on top of the other. They're doing like timed drills. I'm sure that in timed drills, having a barrel that is maybe a couple of inches shorter will basically allow the team to be, I don't know, a few seconds faster through the drill. Okay, we're not training like that. Okay, our most likely type of home defense type of scenario is we are, let's say, behind a position of cover. Let's say behind our bed, right, in the bedroom or in the basement or wherever. But we're in a stationary position and we are allowing the threat to come to us. It's not likely that we're doing room clearing, but even if we are doing room clearing, we would most likely be working alone or with maybe one other person, and then that's kind of iffy. Like, how much training have we had with them? So it's not like a special forces team that has been drilling repetitively. So that it's going off like clockwork, okay? A couple of extra inches on the barrel, I don't think are going to make a difference. What I think is going to make a difference is basically flash banging yourself, right? Because every time you shoot this indoors, especially if you haven't like doubled up on your ear protection, it's essentially like you're being flash banged. I'll shoot the gun now. You're not going to see a whole lot of flash because it's not really that dark, but you'll see some flash, okay? So there's a flash there. If the light was even less, what happens is basically you stop. You lose the ability to see your reticle. You momentarily lose the ability to see your target. Okay. So the flash, as it gets darker, the flash becomes more and more overwhelming. The linear comp that I put on it really, it helps, but it doesn't help a whole lot with the noise and the flash. The special forces teams usually have suppressors on. Okay, so and the most important thing that the suppressor does is that it reduces the flash, right? Because the flash is basically a "here I am, shoot me" sign. Okay, especially if you get outdoors and you start shooting, everybody knows exactly where you are if you don't have a suppressor to bring down that muzzle flash. Okay, so now. Here's the thing with I have shotguns with suppressors. If you have like a 16-inch rifle, you put a suppressor on it and now it becomes like a 20-inch barrel, right? Because it lengthens it up. If you have, let's say, a 10.5-inch barrel, you put a suppressor on that, now it becomes a 14-inch barrel. Okay, if you have a 7.5, you put a suppressor on that, now it becomes like a 10-inch barrel. So the suppressor, in my opinion, kind of negates the benefits of moving to the shorter barrel. Because if you gotta, to me, it makes more sense to just stay with a 16-inch barrel. Okay, stay with the 16-inch barrel so that you don't need the suppressor, so that the noise is still kind of manageable. With some ear protection. Even at least with the plugs, right? With the 16-inch barrel, maybe you can just get away with the plugs if that's all you have. Ideally, you'd rather have earmuffs. I always keep electronic earmuffs in my safe. Wherever my rifle is, I got earmuffs for both me and my wife, right? So we got to be able to communicate with each other. I also got to be able to hear what's going on around the house, if there's a door opening or a window breaking. So maintaining my hearing is an important part of the self-defense, of the home defense plan. You have to maintain your ability to hear. So that's why I keep electronic earmuffs wherever I keep my guns in my house. Okay, if I go to get the guns, I'm gonna get the earmuffs as well. Okay, so let's talk really quickly about the power loss. Okay, so I've done videos where I tested, where I put the 7.5. I shot this through its chronograph. The 7.5-inch barrel gets about 640 foot-pounds of energy. Okay, so basically this is like a 44 Magnum in terms of energy, right? Either high-end 357 or low-end or medium 44 Magnum. That's what you're getting. You're basically losing about half the power, right? Out of a 16-inch barrel, you're usually getting somewhere around 1,100, 1,200 foot-pounds of energy. So you're getting about 640 with this. So you're losing half your power. Okay, on the 10.5, it drops, but not as much. On the 10.5, it drops down to about 950 foot-pounds, 900 foot-pounds sometimes. So it depends on what ammo you have. So let's say I've seen it go as low as 850. So let's say 900 foot-pounds of energy. So you're losing a little. You're losing a little bit on the. You're losing a little bit on the 10.5-inch. You're losing a whole lot on the 7.5-inch. My thought on the 7.5 inches, even though I love this as a great novelty, I love shooting this. When I have a 9mm AR pistol, right? So with the 9mm, when I ran, 7.5 inches, when I ran that through the chronograph, that got 400 foot-pounds. Okay, so because now 9mm is usually shot out of a much shorter barrel, right? That's usually shot, let's say, out of a 4-inch barrel, right? So when you shoot the 9mm now out of 7.5 inches, you're gaining a little extra, a little extra energy. So that comes up to 400 foot-pounds. Okay, this drops down to 650. The difference between my 9mm AR pistol and this is a difference in energy of about 240 foot-pounds. Okay, so the interesting thing there is, the 9mm AR pistol, it's still a decent round for indoor shooting, right? And you don't have all that extra noise, you don't have the extra muzzle flash. If you have to be at 7.5 inches, is it worth gaining the extra 240 foot-pounds just to use a 5.56 caliber, right? So you got the extra noise, extra flash. In my opinion, no. Okay, if I decide that I need to use the 7.5-inch barrel, I'm going to use that in a 9mm. Okay, now you got to test the gun. You got to make sure it's reliable. The issue that I sometimes see with 9mm ARs with the shorter barrels is sometimes you have issues with the hammer resetting. So you got to test it a lot to make sure that the gun's going to be reliable. Of course, you're always going to have your backup pistol. But my thought on that is that, if you have to be at 7.5 inches, maybe moving down to a 9mm instead of the 5.56, that might be a really good idea. Now, the benefit of the 5.56 is if you go outdoors, right? If this thing ends up outdoors, okay, and you shooting, let's say, at 300 yards, okay, the 9mm is really not going to, not that it won't get there, but your holdover is so much that you're going to have a hard time, hitting a man-sized target, okay? I've done videos on that. I've tested it out. I can get to 300 yards with a 9mm AR. One time I was able to get to it consistently. The second time I shot it, I was not. With the 7.5-inch barrel, when I shot this at 300 yards, I got a 7-inch grouping, okay? It was a 77 grain bullet, but I got a 7-inch group on this. I did a video on this, right? Look up the video. I did a 7-inch group with a 7.5-inch barrel at 300 yards. And when I shot it at 400 yards, I got 9 out of 10 hits on a man-sized target. So the target was about 22 inches wide, about this tall. I got 9 out of 10 hits on that. Then I went out to 500 yards. at 500 yards, I got 7 out of 10 hits on a man-sized target. Okay, so this, if you're going to be indoors and there's a good chance you're going to be shooting at distance outdoors, yeah, the 9mm is not going to be cutting it if you think that you're going to be shooting past past 200 yards. Okay, I mean I can get out to 200 yards with a 9mm, but past that, there's a massive drop off. So this will get you there. Now the question becomes, how much power does this, how much energy does this have at the 300 yards, 400 yards, or 500 yards? Well, my answer to that is at 500 yards, right? If I can put effective hits, and 7 out of 10 hits on the man-sized target at 500 yards, I mean, I would consider that effective accuracy. Again, that was with the 77 grain bullets. I would consider that effective accuracy. At that distance, okay, I only need to wound the threat, okay? Because if I wound them, they're not going to. That's going to make them go away, okay? If somebody is shot, even with a 22, at that type of a distance, right, at 300, 400, 500 yards, if they're wounded, they're not going to attack forward. They're going to look to get out of there, okay? Which is different than, let's say, if you wound somebody at 100 yards or 200 yards. At that distance, them retreating may not be an option, because if they retreat, they're just going to get shot in the back. So at 100 yards and 200 yards, I think that you absolutely need a more lethal round, because their mindset is that, hey, if we retreat, we're going to get shot in the back. Even though we're wounded, our best chance of survival is to continue this attack forward, because we don't want to get shot in the back. At least if we attack forward, take out whatever's in front of us, that's going to increase our survival chance. Okay, so that plays a little bit into the psychology of getting wounded at 200 yards versus getting wounded at 500 yards. 500 yards, they can get out of there. At 200 yards, it's kind of iffy. Which way do they go? Do they go forward or do they go back? At 100 yards, unless you're in the woods over here, you almost have to attack forward, right? There's at 100 yards you might be able to retreat here, but if this was an open field, at 100 yards, if this is like an open, let's say an open farm field or something, there's no place to go. Okay, you're not going to be able to retreat to anything, because you're going to get shot in the back as you're retreating. So that plays a little bit into the psychology there. So my thoughts on this is, for a self-defense situation, I don't have an issue. I don't have a problem with the accuracy of this, and I've tested it. Right, I've put up the videos where I'm shooting this at 300 yards, 400 yards, and 500 yards. I don't have a problem with the accuracy at distance. I don't have a problem with the power, right, the penetrating ability or the energy of these rounds at those distances, because at those distances I just want to make them go away. I don't need to get kills that are just going to drop them and immediately incapacitate them. Okay, so I don't have a problem with the power. I don't have a problem with the ability for this thing to shoot at distance. My problem is that when you're indoors, right, in that CQB environment, this is annoyingly loud, okay, and distracting. And if you don't have good ear protection, you're basically flashbanging yourself, right? It feels like you're getting, like your brain is getting punched through your ears, and what that does is it slows down your reflexes. Okay, you're not going to be as fast. You're gonna, and I've shot these guns with minimal ear protection, right? Like if I shoot these guns with just earplugs, okay, in an outdoor environment, it does like slow, like it becomes a distraction where like your thinking process actually slows down. So I've seen it. I've also noticed it in other people while they were seeing. When I asked them questions, their ability to answer you back slows down a little bit, right? Because they're getting kind of brain punched. Okay, so it's stunning, right? That's why they use flashbangs, because it stuns people. Okay, and that's the effect that I have noticed with these short barrels if you're shooting them indoors. And the thing is, the whole idea with this is that it was designed, the whole concept behind this is that it's supposed to be better indoors because of the noise and the flash. I don't think it is better indoors. I think that most people would be better off with just a 16-inch barrel. Now, the question becomes, why do special forces teams all seem to use these short barrels, right? They all have short barrels, 10 inches, 12 inches. Well, they almost always have a suppressor on it. Okay, so they have the suppressor on it. That reduces the flash. That reduces the noise. Okay, and the problem with the suppressor is that it lengthens the gun. Okay, so if you've got a 7.5, you put a suppressor on it. Well, now you're up to 10 inches. Okay, so you got yourself a 10-inch gun. If you got a 10.5-inch barrel, you put a suppressor on it. Well, now you're up to 14 inches. Okay, so I think that the suppressor to some extent offsets the length of the suppressor offsets whatever benefit you're getting out of it. You still end up a maybe 2 inches shorter, or whatever, a couple of inches shorter. Is it worth, are those extra 2 inches or 3 inches of overall length reduction, right? Is there a real benefit to that? Well, for special forces teams to be using it, there must be. Okay, I'll accept that. There must be a benefit, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. However, let's consider how they are training. The way they train, they do like these time drills that they repeat over and over and over again. And they're working with a team, so they're on a stack, one behind the other. So if you're on a stack, there's a benefit to having the shorter barrel, so that the barrels aren't getting like all tangled up with each other. So for the way that they train, right, a whole team moving through a tight, let's say, doorway into a room under a timed conditions, the way they practice, okay, where everybody knows where they're supposed to be, and they're actually counting the seconds. Yeah, I'm sure that they're seeing a benefit, okay? For the way that we're most likely to use these guns in a self-defense type of situation, we're most likely not going to be doing room clearing, okay? Most likely we're going to be taking a position of concealment or cover, with our family or friends or whoever behind us, okay? So we're not doing room clearing, okay? Now, if we are doing room clearing, most likely we're going to be doing it. Let's say we got to get to our kids or to our family, whatever. We're doing it most likely by ourselves. So again, we don't have issues with the guns getting tangled up, okay? And there's effective techniques for shortening the rifle, right? So basically you can bring it over the top of your shoulder like this. That'll shorten the rifle up, or bring it to the outside of your arm, or under your arm like that, okay? My favorite, I prefer to bring it over the top over here. That's how I prefer to. I got to shorten up. If I have a full-size 16-inch barrel and I got to shorten it up, I'll bring it here. But from here, I can just lock into position here, right? So from here, okay? So that's the preferred method that I use on a 16-inch barrel for shortening up. Given the fact that you're not moving with a whole team and where it's being timed and everything, I think that's going to be of more benefit to everyone. And then if you have a situation that does go outdoors, now you've got, because maybe you're not using 77 grain bullets like I use when I shoot 300 yards, right? 400 yards and 500 yards. Maybe you're just using, like 193 or green tips or something, right? So if you're not using match grade ammunition, if you're going to end up shooting past 300 yards, the longer 16-inch barrel is going to be a benefit as far as the accuracy. I think you'll be able to get you'll probably be able to take tighter shots, because I had to go to those 77 grain bullets to be able to get that 7-inch group at 300 yards with this 7.5-inch barrel, right? So the point is that if you're using the 16-inch barrel, you don't have to use the Gucci ammo, right? You can just use cheaper ammo and you'll get there. Okay, maybe you won't have super tight groups, but you'll be able to hit a manned-sized target. So there's my thoughts on this. Just opinion, but again, I get to shoot these guns. I shoot every day. I have different length guns. I have 7.5. I have 10.5s. I have 16s. I have 18-inch barrels. I got the 9mm versions, right? I even got a 9mm in 4 inches. Okay. If it has to be a 7.5-inch barrel, I would probably switch over to a 9mm. Because I'm losing a little bit more energy, but I'm still at 400 foot-pounds. 400 foot-pounds is basically a 40 cal, right? So I'm basically using a 40 cal that has basically that I can stabilize, basically. Okay, so 400 foot-pounds is not terrible for being indoors, for CQB type of work. Okay. you know, so that's my opinion. Oh, before I go, I just want to show you guys real quick. With the 7.5s, I like to use the single point sling. If I go to 10.5, I'd rather have the 2-point sling. But for the 7.5, the single point sling works really nice because I can just flip this around my back like that really easy. I can retrieve this really easy. If I need to, because I could put this through the other arm, but if I need to just hang this up temporarily and get this out of my way, I can just hook it up like that. That kind of gets this out of my way. So if I need to run or something, so for the 7.5s, I really like the single point string. I mean, if you're running, this is going to want to hit you in the nuts, but just flip this around to your side. Now it's like a holster, right? You got this off to your side a little bit, you know, off the side behind you. You know, you can, and this works fine from either side because I can put my other arm through it too, depending on. So I can put this arm through it. Okay, so with this arm over here, right now, if I want it to go off to the side, you know, now basically it's got to go to my left side. So if I come up here, now I'm pretty ambidextrous. I can shoot on either side. So if I don't want this interfering, let's say with my sidearm, I can throw this to this side and basically just know that I got to come up lefty. Okay, or I can stay righty on this side, right? And now if I want to get this out of my way, I just flip that through like this, and this is a pretty comfortable position. The gun is pretty light, so it's not going to tire me out. So a couple of things I just wanted to throw in there as far as using the 7.5-inch barrel. I mean, it is, you know, it is very light. You know, this is something that, you know, it's definitely very light to maneuver around with. Okay, so if it wasn't for the insane sound, I would be like all for this, all right? Because this is a very light, easy to handle gun. I really like that aspect of it. But the reality is that it's just so annoyingly loud that I don't think that it's very practical for most of us to do any CQB type of work with it, because the concussion is basically just like brain punching us. Okay, and the interesting thing is the concussion, especially if you're indoors, doesn't just come in through your ears. The concussion wave also goes in through your body. It'll come in through your eyes. So even if you're doubled up on ear protection, if you shoot hundreds of rounds of this stuff, you'll still get a headache because that wave is still coming through your body and it's still getting to your brain. And you know, I can tell you guys firsthand, you will still get a mild headache. It's like, I mean, it's not anything permanent or anything. As long as you've got some ear protection on. If you don't have ear protection on, yeah, you can definitely give yourself long-term permanent ear damage shooting this thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope it answers the question. Again, it's just opinion on this, but I think that the short barrels are not. This thing is like kind of okay. Yeah, I hate having things in my ears like that. This is the only time I put the earplugs in my ears if I'm shooting these short barrels. Otherwise, I like using just the earmuffs. But yeah, I don't think that the benefits that you get, benefits of maneuverability, outweigh the insanely loud sound. So, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all soon.